The morning sun cast long shadows across the crystalline spires of Velthara as Elder Crixon adjusted his ceremonial robes for what felt like the 100th time. His 4 eyes, each a different shade of amber, scanned the horizon with growing impatience. The great selection had been delayed for 3 cycles now, and the village council was getting restless. "Still no sign of the human settlement scouts?" asked Zara Lynn, her tentacles twitching with nervous energy as she approached the observation deck. "None whatsoever," Crixon replied, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Though I suspect our little experiment may finally bear fruit today." "You mean the child?" "Indeed. Young Pip Coe has been missing for exactly 6 rotations now. Long enough for panic to set in among the humans, but not long enough for them to assume the worst." Zara Lynn's 3 hearts skipped a beat. The plan had seemed foolproof when the council first proposed it, but now, watching the elders' calculating expression, she wondered if they'd bitten off more than they could chew. "Elder, are you certain this is wise? The humans have proven unpredictable in their responses to our kind." Crixon's laugh was like gravel rolling down a mountain. "My dear Zara Lynn, that's precisely why this test is so perfect. Any fool can lead when times are peaceful. We need someone who can think on their feet, show compassion under pressure, and most importantly, handle the unexpected with grace." "But what if they don't find him? What if they—" "They will." The elder's confidence was absolute. "Humans are remarkably predictable when it comes to their young. They'll search every cave, every tree, every shadow until they find him. The question is, which one of them will be the first to act with true leadership?" Far below, nestled in a grove of twisted purple trees, 8-year-old Pip Coe sat perfectly still, just as he'd been instructed. His natural camouflage had faded to a nervous grey-green, and his small hands fidgeted with the communication device hidden in his pouch. The whole village was counting on him to play his part convincingly. Remember, his mother had told him before he left, "You're not really lost. You're helping us find our next great leader. Act scared, but not too scared. Cry a little, but don't overdo it. And whatever you do, don't let them see you're enjoying this." But Pip Coe was enjoying it, despite his best efforts. The anticipation, the secrecy, the importance of his role, it was all terribly exciting for a young Veltharian who'd never been more than a mile from his home. A twig snapped nearby. Pip Coe's heart began racing as he heard footsteps approaching, heavy, deliberate steps that could only belong to a human. This was it, the moment of truth. "Hello?" a voice called out. "Is someone there?" Pip Coe peeked through the foliage and saw a tall human male with sandy brown hair and kind eyes. The man wore simple clothes and carried a worn leather satchel, but something about his posture suggested he was used to being in charge. "Please," Pip Coe whispered, making his voice tremble just enough. "Help me. I'm lost." The human's expression immediately shifted from curiosity to concern. He moved closer, his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Hey there, little guy. Don't worry, I'm going to help you. My name is Marcus." "What's yours?" "Pip Coe," the child replied, allowing a single tear to roll down his cheek. "I've been lost for so long. I can't find my way home." Marcus knelt down to Pip Coe's level, his movements slow and careful. "That's a beautiful name, Pip Coe. Can you tell me where you live? I'll make sure you get back to your family safely." Back in the village, Crixon and the other elders watched through their scrying crystals as the scene unfolded. This Marcus seemed promising, calm, gentle, clearly experienced with children. But the real test was yet to come. "Initiate Phase 2, Crixon commanded. Suddenly, the ground beneath Marcus and Pip Co began to tremble. A low growling sound echoed through the forest, and the purple trees swayed ominously. Marcus's head snapped up, his protective instincts kicking in immediately. "What was that?" Pip Co asked, his fear now entirely genuine. "I don't know, buddy, but we need to move. Can you walk?" Pip Co nodded, and Marcus helped him to his feet. As they began moving through the forest, more sounds emerged from the darkness: howls, screeches, and the distinctive clicking of Veltharian cave crawlers. "This is perfect," Zara Lynn murmured, watching the crystal display. He's staying calm, protecting the child, thinking strategically. But listen to that. Is he actually talking to himself? Indeed, Marcus was muttering under his breath as they walked. "Okay, Marcus, think. Strange planet, lost alien child, mysterious noises in the forest. Just another Tuesday, right. Yeah. Keep the kids safe. Find the village. Try not to get eaten by whatever's making those sounds. Simple." Pip Co looked up at him with confusion. "Are you talking to me?" "Sorry, kid. Bad habit. I think better when I talk out loud. Don't worry about the noises, okay? I've dealt with worse. Worse than cave crawlers." Marcus paused. "Cave crawlers? Those are a thing here?" "Well, that's just fantastic. Any other local wildlife I should know about?" "Flying razor beasts? Acid-spitting flower monsters?" Despite his fear, Pip Co giggled. "No, but there are singing stones that can make you dizzy if you listen too long." "Singing stones? Of course there are." "You know what, Pip Co? Your planet is absolutely bonkers, but I'm starting to like it." In the observation chamber, several elders exchanged glances. This human's ability to maintain humor under pressure was impressive, but his casual acceptance of their world's dangers was even more so. "Phase 3, Creekson ordered." The temperature began to drop rapidly. Frost formed on the purple leaves, and Pip Co's breath became visible in small puffs. The child began to shiver, and Marcus immediately removed his jacket, wrapping it around the small alien. "There you go, buddy. Better?" Pip Co nodded gratefully, but his shivering intensified. The cold was real. The elders hadn't held back on this part of the test. "Listen, Pip Co, I need you to stay close to me, okay? We're going to find your village, but it might take a while." "I'll try," Pip Co whispered. Marcus picked up the child, carrying him as they continued through the increasingly hostile forest. Ice began forming on the ground, making each step treacherous. But Marcus pressed on, his determination unwavering. "You know," he said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Back on Earth, I used to be a scout leader. Took kids on camping trips all the time. Never had to deal with cave crawlers and singing stones, but the basic principle is the same. Keep everyone safe, keep everyone calm, and always have a backup plan." "What's your backup plan?" Pip Co asked. Marcus grinned. "Find your village, get you home safe, and then maybe ask your parents if they need a babysitter. You're good company, kid." This drew another giggle from Pip Co, and even some of the watching elders couldn't help but smile. The human's ability to maintain levity while facing genuine danger was remarkable. As they walked, Marcus began telling Pip Co stories about Earth, about snow and camping, about children who went on adventures and always found their way home. His voice was warm and engaging, and Pip Co found himself genuinely enjoying the tales. "Are all humans like you?" Pip Co asked. "Like me? You mean devastatingly handsome and incredibly modest?" "No, I mean kind and funny, and not afraid of cave crawlers." Marcus's expression grew thoughtful. Some are, some aren't, just like with your people, I imagine. The thing is, Pipco, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs to be done, even when you are scared. And right now, what needs to be done is getting you home. Even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous. That's what grown-ups do, kid. We take care of each other. In the observation chamber, Elder Crickson leaned forward with interest. Now we're getting somewhere. Continue with Phase 4. The forest around them began to shift and change. The paths appeared and disappeared, trees rearranged themselves, and what had been familiar landmarks moments before became completely alien. Marcus stopped, clearly disoriented. "Okay, that's new," he muttered. "Pipco, does your forest usually rearrange itself?" "Sometimes," Pipco admitted, "when the forest spirits are restless." "Forest spirits. Right, why didn't I think of that?" Marcus set Pipco down gently and knelt beside him. "Listen, buddy, I need you to think really hard. Do you remember anything about the way home? Any landmarks that don't move around?" Pipco pretended to think, though he knew exactly where they were. "The singing stones. They never move. If we can find them, I can guide us from there." "Singing stones it is. Which way?" Pipco pointed in a seemingly random direction, and Marcus nodded. "Lead the way, navigator." As they walked, the forest's shifting intensified. Trees sprouted and withered in seconds, the ground rolled like ocean waves, and the very air seemed to shimmer with otherworldly energy. But Marcus adapted to each change with remarkable composure. "You know, Pipco," he said, steadying the child as the ground bucked beneath them, "I'm starting to think your planet might be trying to tell us something." "Like what?" "Like maybe it's testing us, seeing how we handle the unexpected." "What do you think?" Pipco's eyes widened. The human was closer to the truth than he could possibly know. "Maybe, but why would it test us?" "Well, if I were a magical forest, I'd probably want to make sure anyone passing through was worthy of, I don't know, something important. Something that required real character." "Like what?" Marcus paused, his eyes scanning the shifting landscape. "Like leadership. Like the ability to protect others when everything goes wrong. Like wisdom and courage and, oh!" He stopped walking entirely, his expression changing from confusion to understanding. Pipco felt a moment of panic had Marcus figured out the test. "Pipco," Marcus said slowly, "how long have you been lost?" 6 days, Pipco replied truthfully. 6 days. And in all that time, no one from your village has found you? No search parties, no rescue teams? Maybe they're looking in the wrong places." Marcus nodded, but his eyes held a new sharpness. "Maybe. Or maybe this isn't quite what it seems." In the observation chamber, tension filled the air. Had they pushed too hard? Had the humans seen through their deception? "Should we abort?" Zara Lynn whispered. "No," Crickson replied firmly. "Let's see what he does with his suspicions. This is where true leadership reveals itself." Marcus looked down at Pipco, his expression gentle but searching. "Pipco, I want you to know that whatever's really going on here, I'm going to keep you safe." "That's a promise, but I also want you to know that if there's something you need to tell me, now would be a good time." Pipco felt his resolve wavering. The human's kindness was so genuine, so selfless, that the deception felt cruel. But the fate of his people's leadership hung in the balance. "I don't know what you mean," he said finally. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "That's okay, buddy. We'll figure it out together. But first, let's find those singing stones. I have a feeling they're going to be very important." As they continued their trek through the impossible forest, neither of them noticed the small group of Veltharian elders following at a discreet distance, their faces filled with anticipation and growing respect for the human who had already passed more tests than he knew. The singing stones appeared just as Pip-Ko had promised, though their melody was far more haunting than Marcus had expected. 3 massive crystalline formations jutted from the forest floor, each one humming a different note that somehow harmonized into something both beautiful and deeply unsettling. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Marcus muttered, then caught himself. "Sorry, Pip-Ko. They're actually quite pretty." "You can say they're scary," Pip-Ko replied with a small smile. "Everyone thinks so at first, but listen carefully. Can you hear the pattern?" Marcus tilted his head, concentrating. Beneath the obvious melody, there was indeed a pattern, a rhythm that seemed to pulse with the very heartbeat of the forest itself. "It's like a code," he said slowly, "or a language. My grandmother says the stones remember everything that happens in the forest. They sing the stories back to anyone who knows how to listen. And do you know how to listen?" Pip-Ko's expression grew thoughtful. "A little. My mother has been teaching me. She says I have the gift." In the observation chamber, Elder Creeksan's 4 eyes widened. That was not part of the script. Young Pip-Ko was improvising, and badly. The gift of stone song was sacred, not something to be mentioned casually to an outsider. "The child speaks too freely," Zara Lynn whispered urgently. "No," Crickson said, his voice filled with wonder. "Look at the human's reaction. He's not dismissing it as primitive superstition. He's curious, respectful." Indeed, Marcus had knelt beside the nearest stone, his hand hovering just above its surface. "May I?" he asked Pip-Ko. The child nodded, and Marcus placed his palm against the warm crystal. The humming intensified, and for a moment Marcus could have sworn he heard voices within the melody. Dozens of them, speaking in a language he didn't understand, but somehow felt in his bones. "They're talking about us," he said, his voice filled with awe. "About this moment." He paused, his eyes finding Pip-Ko's. It was about a test. The child's camouflage flickered nervously from grey-green to pale blue. "What kind of test?" "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." As if summoned by his words, the forest around them began to clear. The shifting trees settled into their natural positions, the unnatural cold retreated, and the path ahead became obvious for the first time since they'd started their trek. "The village is close now," Pip-Ko said quietly. "Just over that ridge." Marcus stood, brushing dirt from his knees. "Then let's get you home, little navigator." But as they crested the ridge, Marcus stopped short. The village spread out below them was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Crystalline spires twisted skyward, organic-looking buildings seemed to grow from the earth itself, and bioluminescent gardens cast everything in a soft, ethereal glow. "It's beautiful," he breathed. "Welcome to Velthara," Pip-Ko said, his voice filled with pride. "Home of the Singing Stones tribe." As they descended toward the village, Marcus noticed something odd. Despite the late hour, the streets were filled with Veltharians, all of them watching their approach with intense interest. There was no panic, no relief at seeing a lost child returned, just anticipation. "Pip-Ko," Marcus said carefully, "how often do humans visit your village?" "Not very often." "Actually never. You're the first." "The first. I see. And your people seem very prepared for my arrival." A crowd had gathered in the central plaza, and Marcus could see several figures in elaborate robes standing at the front. Their bearing suggested authority, importance. like a welcoming committee. "Tell me honestly, Pipco," Marcus said, stopping just outside the village proper. "Were you ever really lost?" The child's camouflage shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple that Marcus somehow knew indicated shame. "Not exactly lost, no." "I see. And this test the singing stones mentioned. Would you happen to know what that's about?" Pipco's 3 hearts were beating so fast Marcus could see the pulse in his throat. "It's time for our village to choose a new leader. Someone who can guide us through the changes coming to our world. Someone who can work with humans and Veltharians alike. And your people thought the best way to find this leader was to see who would help a lost child, even when it was dangerous, even when it didn't make sense, even when they might have suspected it was a trick." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. Then, to Pipco's amazement, he began to laugh, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. "You know what, kid? That's actually brilliant. Completely insane, but brilliant. Your people have quite the sense of drama. You're not angry." "Angry? I'm impressed. Though I have to say, if you wanted to test human leadership, you picked the wrong guy. I'm just a maintenance engineer who likes camping. But you passed every test. You protected me, you stayed calm, you solved problems, you showed kindness and wisdom and I'm not one of your people," Marcus interrupted gently. "Pipco, I appreciate the confidence, but I can't be your leader. I don't understand your culture, your laws, your history. I'm a stranger here." From within the crowd, Elder Creekson stepped forward. His ceremonial robes glittered in the bioluminescent light, and his 4 eyes fixed on Marcus with ancient intelligence. "That," he said in accented but clear English, "is precisely why you are perfect for the role." Marcus turned to face the elder, and Pipco could see the transformation in his posture. The casual engineer disappeared, replaced by someone who radiated quiet authority. "With respect, Elder, I don't think you understand what you're asking. Leadership isn't just about passing tests or showing good character. It's about understanding the needs of your people, knowing their hopes and fears, being able to make decisions that affect generations." "Indeed," Crickson agreed. "Tell me, Marcus of the humans, what do you think our people need most?" Marcus looked around at the gathered crowd. Hundreds of Veltharians watched him with expressions ranging from curiosity to hope to skepticism. Children peeked out from behind their parents, their camouflage shifting with excitement. "Honestly, I think you need someone who can help you navigate the future. Your people are going to have more contact with humans whether you want it or not. Space travel, trade, cultural exchange, it's all coming whether you're ready or not. You need someone who can bridge both worlds. And you believe you could do this?" "I believe I could help, but not as your leader. As your advisor, your translator, your friend. Someone who works with your chosen leader to make sure both our peoples benefit from contact." Zara Lynn stepped forward, her tentacles writhing with agitation. "The prophecy speaks of an outsider who would guide us through the time of change. One who would see with foreign eyes, but understand with a native heart." "Prophecies are tricky things," Marcus replied diplomatically. "They tend to mean what people want them to mean." "Perhaps," Crickson said with a smile. "But consider this, in 6 rotations of testing, you are the only being, human or Veltharian, who has successfully completed all trials. You protected our most precious resource, our children. You showed respect for our customs without losing your own identity. You solved problems we deliberately made unsolvable. And most importantly, you have the wisdom to refuse power when it is offered freely. That last part is what makes you perfect for leadership," added another elder, her voice carrying the weight of years. A leader who wants the position is dangerous. A leader who accepts it reluctantly, only when needed, is exactly what we require. Marcus looked down at Pip Coe, who was watching him with bright, hopeful eyes. "What do you think, little navigator? Should I accept this impossible job?" "I think you already have," Pip Coe said wisely. "You've been leading since the moment you found me. You just didn't realize it." "Out of the mouths of babes," Marcus muttered. Then, louder, "What exactly would this position involve?" "You would work alongside our existing council," Crichton explained. "Your role would be to help us prepare for increased contact with your people, to establish protocols for trade, diplomacy, cultural exchange, to ensure that neither of our peoples loses what makes them unique while still learning from each other. And I would have advisors, people who actually understand Veltharian culture. The entire council would be at your disposal, as would our historians, our scientists, our artists. You would not rule alone." Marcus walked to the center of the plaza, his mind racing. The logical part of him screamed that this was insane. He was a simple engineer, not a diplomat or a leader. He had no training in alien cultures, no experience with interspecies relations. But another part of him, the part that had spent 6 days protecting a child he'd never met, recognized the rightness of it. These people needed help navigating a changing world. They needed someone who understood both sides of the equation. "I have conditions," he said finally. "Name them," Crichton replied. "First, I want to learn everything I can about your people. Your history, your customs, your hopes and fears. I can't lead people I don't understand." "Agreed." "Second, I want regular communication with human authorities. If I'm going to help establish relations between our peoples, I need to understand both sides." "Reasonable." "Third, I want Pip Coe here to be my first official advisor. Anyone clever enough to trick me into taking this job deserves a role in the government." The crowd erupted in surprised laughter, and Pip Coe's camouflage shifted to a brilliant gold that Marcus somehow knew indicated pure joy. "That," Crichton said, his eyes twinkling, "is highly irregular. But then so is everything about this situation." "Very well. Do you accept the position of bridge leader of the Velthara?" Marcus took a deep breath, looked around at the faces watching him with hope and curiosity, and felt something shift inside him. Maybe he wasn't the leader these people deserved, but he was the one they needed. And sometimes that was enough. "I accept," he said simply. The cheer that went up from the crowd was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. It was music and celebration and relief all rolled into one, and it seemed to make the very air shimmer with joy. As the festivities began around them, Pip Coe tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "But that's okay. Remember what I told you about being brave. It's not about not being scared. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are scared." "Exactly. And right now what needs to be done is helping your people prepare for the future. Whatever that future might bring." Pip Coe's camouflage shifted to a warm, contented green. "I think you're going to be a very good leader, Marcus." "I think," Marcus replied, watching as his new people celebrated around them, "we're going to find out together." In the months that followed, Marcus would face challenges he never could have imagined. Trade negotiations that required understanding 14 different forms of Veltharian politeness, cultural exchanges that nearly caused diplomatic incidents over the proper way to harvest singing stones. Emergency councils called at all hours to deal with everything from interspecies dating protocols to the proper taxation of bioluminescent gardens. But through it all he would remember the lesson learned in those first 6 days, that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about caring enough to find them, being brave enough to make hard decisions, and wise enough to know when to ask for help. And whenever the job seemed impossible, whenever the weight of responsibility threatened to crush him, he would look at his young advisor and remember that sometimes the most important tests come disguised as simple acts of kindness. The future of Velthara was in good hands, even if those hands had no idea what they were doing half the time. After all, what was leadership but figuring it out as you went along?